Lesson 64 is about adding signed numbers. In Lesson 59, we learned about adding integers on the number line, and we learned about adding positive and negative integers using that number line and visualizing a number line in our head to help us add positive and negative integers together. Or in other words, signed numbers, numbers that have a plus or a minus sign in front of them. Well, in this lesson we're going to graduate from the number line concept, and we're going to learn some new steps on adding really big signed numbers together. The easiest thing to do when adding signed numbers is to add numbers that have the same signs. Now, I'm not going to talk about adding two numbers that have positive signs because that's really easy. You already know how to do that. Let's talk about adding two numbers that had negative signs. You'd follow these steps here. You add their absolute values. That's what the AV stands for that I've written there. Add their absolute values together and give the answer the same sign as the numbers, as the original numbers. So let's just say you had like minus 60 plus a minus 20. We'll put those in parentheses there. Minus 60 plus a minus 20. So really what you're doing is adding 60 and 20, which would be 80. Give the answer the same sign as the numbers had, minus 80. You can think about a number line to do this. Just visualize a number line and going to the left 60 and then going to the left another 20. That would get you at negative 80, right? Use a number line to help you make sense out of adding the signed numbers. But obviously it would be a real pain to write a number line that had 60 or 80 tick marks on it. So you don't want to write that down. You just maybe want to visualize that in your head and then also follow that step that I have there to add signed numbers that have the same sign. When you do different signs, when you're adding numbers with different signs, this is what you do. You just take the bigger absolute value minus the smaller absolute value. Just subtract them. Then you give the answer the same sign as the number that had the greater absolute value. For example, if you were doing minus 60 plus a positive 20, you would subtract those. You do the bigger absolute value, which is the 60, minus the 20, which equals 40. Then you give the answer the same sign as the number that had the greater absolute value. The 60 had the greater absolute value, and it had a negative in front of it. So that's what you do to your answer, minus 40. Now, just visualize a number line. Think about that, and do your addition on this. You would go to the left 60, and then back to the right 20, which would get you at negative 40, right? So if you want to just think about a number line like that, you can, but sometimes you've got some weird numbers that aren't as easy to subtract as 60 minus 20. So it's very, very helpful to remember these steps here. Same signs, add the absolute values together, give the answer the same sign as the original numbers had. When you add different signs together, you do bigger minus smaller absolute value. Then give the answer the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. Let's go ahead and do some practice problems. Remember, I like to add in pairs when I do problems like this. And let's just look at that. Minus 6 plus 8. So we have different signs there. We take the difference in those two numbers, bigger absolute value minus smaller. So that would be 8 minus 6 is 2. Give the answer the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. So that would be the 8. It has a positive sign. Then plus the next two, plus 12 minus 5. We have different signs there. So we do 12 minus 5 is 7. We have a positive sign for the number with the greater absolute value. 2 plus 7 is 9. That's our answer. Stay organized on these problems. We added these two numbers together and these two numbers together to get that 7 there. And then we added the 2 and the 7. Can't go back and check your work on these. Only way you can check your work is to just repeat the problem. Do it over. And the goal is to get it right the first time. So if you stay organized, that really helps you in your goal of getting it right the first time. Let's do another one. add in pairs. Let's add the -9 and the 2 together. So we take the difference in those first two numbers because they have different signs. 9 minus 2 would be 7. And we give the answer the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. That would be the 9. It has a negative in front of it. So we have a -7 plus a -11. And that's easy because we just have same signs. We do 7 plus 11 is 18. Give the answer the same sign as those numbers had. -18 is the answer. We can always think about that on a number line as well. Go to the left 7, then to the left 11 more. We get to -18. You don't want to draw a number line out to solve these problems. It's just too time consuming. You want to basically wean yourself from having to draw a number line every time you work a signed number problem. But you do want to visualize a number line in your head to help you figure out these problems. That's a good way to check your work and just think about, am I doing this problem correctly? Now, here's a problem that has a mixed number. Both the terms are mixed numbers, and we can still do the same steps. All of our problems before this have been integers, but you still follow the same steps that we were just discussing that I had written on green on the previous screen. And remember what you do if you have different signs. You just subtract those two numbers, and then your result will have the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. That would be the 4 1/5. Our answer will have a negative sign to it. Let's just go ahead and do the subtraction here. We'd have 4 1/5 minus 2 3/10. So think about what we need to do here. 1/5, we need to change that to 2/10. Now we can't do 2/10 minus 3/10, so we need to borrow from that 4. That changes it to a 3, and that gives us a 12/10 because we add 10/10. So now we have 12/10 minus 3/10. That would be 9/10, and 3 minus 2 is 1, 1, and 9/10. And put a negative sign out front, because our answer has the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. -1 9/10 is our answer. Let's do one more problem. Doesn't matter if it's fractions, decimals, integers that we're working with. We can still follow those steps of how to add signed numbers together. Why don't you pause the CD and see if you can figure out practice problem D. What we want to do here is add in pairs, just like we've been doing. So let's add that -3.6 and 12.33 together. We're adding numbers with different signs, so that basically means we need to do subtraction. And so let's just do that. 12.33 minus 3.6, and we'll put a 0 in there to have something in the hundredths place. Now let's do the subtraction. 3 minus 0 is 3. Can't do 3 minus 6, so we borrow. We end up with 13 minus 6 is 7. Can't do 1 minus 3, but we can do 11 minus 3 is 8. And so we have 8.73. And let's just rewrite that down here. 8.73 plus a negative 4.2. Now again, we need to do subtraction. And let's just do that over here to the side. This problem's a little bit harder to have a pattern to it because we have to do these different subtraction steps with the decimal numbers. But hopefully you're getting good enough at this now that you can keep up with what's going on. Doing subtraction, so we have 3 minus 0 is 3, 7 minus 2 is 5, 8 minus 4 is 4, 4.53. We did a positive 8.73 plus a negative 4.2. Our answer, we give the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value, so our answer is a positive 4.53. Make sure you memorize those rules for adding signed numbers. When you have same signs, you add the absolute values together, give the answer the same sign as the original numbers. adding numbers with different signs together, you do bigger absolute value minus smaller absolute value, then you give the answer the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. Now there's some supplemental practice problems that you can do that are in the back of the book. Can't do too many of these problems. You are going to be doing these a whole lot in your next several years of mathematics. So the better you get at them now, the easier math is going to be later, less time you have to spend doing math, and the more time you can spend doing other things if you work hard at it right now. Okay, well that's all for lesson 16.